to order at 10:06. President Bill McGowan, Lisa McGonigal, Wayne Sawchuk, Rod Hoffman, Paul Kears, and Dan Coughlin. So I believe our first piece of business is Diab Lane.
Nope, CJC.
Oh, we're going to do that first?
That's first on the agenda.
All right, fine. So, all right, that's no problem. I know that since Wayne and I, with the untimely demise of John Beck, have been doing this for the better part of 3 years, and I think it would be worthwhile for us to make a statement, and then we have another proposal to extend to the applicant. But Wayne, do you want to start off, please?
Well, I can, but I don't want to make it too long. But
No, I'm going to.
I think part of our confusion on the board is that over the last few years, there's been many different options presented by Mr. Stasko, including, tell me where you want to put the sewer line. I'll put it anywhere you want. I'll take it up Sawyer Street. I'll go across over to Evergreen Lane. I'll go down 3A. Tell me what to do. And most of the time, I would say, we'll put your plan in writing and present it to the board. So we're now at a point where we have a plan that's before the board that I think will work. I have to talk personally. I want to make it so that this is not a connection just for one person, and so I want to make sure that the town is able to extend any portion without having to go and get easements or anything like that from Mr. Stasko or anybody else. And secondly, to build it in such a way that it's going to serve long term. I don't think it should be that it has to be gold plated, because we have nothing in town that's gold plated. So if we use a PVC pipe where it's logical to use it, that we do that. If there's a piece of ductile line that should be put in underneath a highway crossing, just to give us some extra insurance that something isn't going to happen within the roadbed that could cause it to be a problem. I don't think I have a problem with the gravity sewer. It might make a lot of sense to have that, and for different reasons. And I think that those were some of my concerns. And I think it's fair for us to cooperate as much as we can in sort of having this come to a conclusion. So,
thank you. I'm not going to go. I don't want to plow over ground that we've already covered. And Wayne mentioned the three alternatives that we have looked at, and now focusing on 3A. There has been back and forth and concessions made by the board that reflect the connection fee being reduced to $250,000 as basically acknowledging the affordable housing that would be going in. And so we are prepared and would actually vote on this if it is of note to Mr. Stasko. We have made yet another concession for him, and it is in our proposal will basically be this: the connection from the Stop and Shop Plaza to Pella Road would be borne by Mr. Stasko 100%. And as Wayne mentioned, that any connections that we have would be we'd share that revenue with him for 10 years, and that would be a 50% sharing. As far as the connection fee, we have lowered that to 1.6 million, and we are willing to take after the deposit is made a payment term of 20 years. And if that is if that's of interest to Mr. Stasko, we'd be happy to vote on that. And then work to a successful conclusion for him to get connected to the sewer system.
Attorney DeLisi, is this something that your client might be interested in?
Thank you. Because I can see that the board means business today. I just want to make a quick introduction. I'm here with Bill Armberger, my partner. Chip Nyland, I believe, might need to be voted into the call. He's our special counsel for environmental matters. And Mr. Stasko is on the line, as well as our engineers, Mark Negrotti and Tony Omobono from Tetra Tech. Thank you for that introduction. I think it's something that I'd like to talk to my client about. This is the first I'm hearing about this concept, this new pay plan concept. I do think, though, that there was some confusion as to whether the application for the connection has been accepted. And I think in order for us to actually have the conversation about terms and things of that nature, I think that it might make, like to ask the board to vote to accept the application. I'd also, I think that I'd like to have a better handle. I think, Bill, you mentioned a concession with respect to the fee of $250,000. I'd like to just have a better understanding as to how the board has arrived at that figure. So those would be my initial thoughts.
Do you want me to add? Do you want me to answer that right now?
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
So it's got to be at least 2 months ago. I don't remember. I mean, I don't know what I did yesterday, let alone two months ago. But I was approached by, might have been 3 months ago, by Chris Senior, asking the board to consider some way to move this forward. And I don't know whether I made the idea or he made the idea of a financial concession that would reflect the affordable housing component. But the board discussed this and we came up with a number of $250,000 that we thought would be an adequate. It would be a good concession for affordable housing.
I'd like just to add, I believe that what I heard at certain points were that the select people went ahead and either had a formal vote or had a discussion, and they came up with the amount of $250,000, because it's not something that that our board came up with that number.
So I'm glad that you mentioned that, Wayne. I also have spoken with Chris, and he flat out told me that he has not weighed in on the issue of the town's proposal and the terms of the agreement, nor have the selectmen. And so the first I'm hearing about any formal vote of the selectmen with respect to affordable units and credit on sewer is right now. And I don't mean at all to be adversarial on this. I'm just taken aback because we let's face it, is the number that we arrived at based on our Title V intended uses, the design calculations obviously is different from the figure that the board has arrived at. And that difference is essentially a difference of around 400,000 and change. And so, thinking about, is there a way to kind of bridge the gap? Obviously, this concept of credit for the affordables is something that is, something that could be considered properly. I I just wanted an understanding as to, was it based on, we have 20 units that are going to be counted towards the town's affordable housing inventory with a total of 20 bedrooms. And that's the public service amenity for this project. I think that allows the commission to, under the statute, to go outside of the sewer district and connect the property if it grants that. And you're certainly acknowledging that that there's a public service use and benefit here. So I guess I was wondering, is the dollar sum of the credit, so to speak, is that something that's based on each of the 20 units, or is it based on bedrooms? To say 250,000, I'm wondering if the credit, if the board would be willing to consider a bigger credit for the amenity that's being provided, especially in light of the fact that we are building the line, and the fee that the commission is proposing to take is something that is in addition to, so basically the town doesn't have to do anything with respect to capital costs here. So those are the thoughts that are swirling, and I appreciate very much both of your comments so far in today's meeting. I would like to talk to Mr. Stasko about them. Those are my initial, thoughts. Is coming into this discussion today, the thought was, we still have to resolve this issue of the credit. We believe that we should get some kind of credit for doing the work for the capital costs and the infrastructure. And then in addition to that, the fee which we're talking about. And Bill, I think you brought up the other issue, which is the 10 years for the cost sharing. I think it probably should be 20 years at a higher percentage, especially if 20 years is the usual time frame for a betterment. So those are just kind of my thoughts.
The 10 years, Jeff, was for people to connect on, and our thought on that is that we don't want this to be something that is forever, meaning meaning what if nothing happens for 10 or 20 years or something like that? It's just how long do you have to make the connections? Maybe because it has a limit of 50%, maybe it doesn't really matter in terms of how long it takes.
Yeah.
But on the betterment side, excuse me, just for another second, on the betterment side, we felt, certainly I felt that it is 20 years is what the people in the Little Harbor District and everywhere else in town had, because of financing, everything else, are able to put on their and pay off on their taxes, and then the collection thing is all taken care of and all that other stuff. So it becomes a much more palatable amount, to have to pay, and it also takes care of inflation or anything else. I had one last little question. And when that 250 came down from up above, not certainly from me, are there actually 4 units that count as 20, or is it 5 units that count as 20?
So
how many are actually affordable?
The answer to the question is that there are 20 total units. 5 of the 20 units are deed restricted as affordable voluntarily, in order to allow the town to count all 20 units in its inventory. So the benefit to the town is 20 affordable units, not 5. And that was done by Mr. Stasko, not because it was required, but because he understood that the benefit to the town would be innumerably increased if he were to bring the total number of affordable units designated affordable to 5. And that, again, allows all 20 to be counted in the inventory.
I was just, so it's 25% of the units are affordable. I'm an individual that thinks that, but I shouldn't even say it, but to have everybody in the town happy that you can get 20 affordable units counted, and yet we need affordable units. Where's the situation where in fact you create more affordable units that are affordable? So that's just my editorial, and it can be on the minutes, but it is not the way the rules are written and the way most people in town that want to keep Cohasset as affluent as possible make this happen.
Yes, and Wayne, I can kind of address that because I'm on the Affordable Housing Steering Committee. So we had set up the Affordable Housing Steering Committee 5 years ago to help seek out that affordable housing. And we also set up an affordable housing trust, which has been funded in the last 2 town meetings, upwards of, I think, about $800,000. So the way the state calculates affordable housing really isn't a great way to calculate it, because like you said, they only require between 10 and 20% of the units to be actually affordable, but you count all of them as affordable housing. That's just what the state's been doing for 30 or 40 years, so we can't change that. But in the town, to create housings that you can actually afford, right, which is the small A, we call it the big A, which is affordable housing in which properties are deeded for 30 years or in perpetuity. And then there's a small A, which is where you actually build housing that is affordable. Those are usually under what they call a 40R program, if you were to put it in a development. So the town is aggressively pursuing what you would call more affordable housing, smaller units that are affordable. And it's really based on, planning and zoning. But those are kind of gearing up. So this particular property is critical to the census. So, every year, every 10 years, they do the census, and basically grants from the federal and the state government are based on your 10-year census. So to give you an example, at Elder Affairs, we get, $4 or $5 per senior over the age of 60, whatever that number is. So we get a $16,000 grant every year. But the number of seniors are based on what they counted in 2010. So even though we've had more seniors every year, the state doesn't come to see what your latest total is. They go by the 2010 census. So when 2020 comes out, there'll be an increase in that number. And then what the state will probably do is lower the amount per senior you receive money for. So that's why I've been telling people it's very critical for this particular property with the 20 units to come online. The state has extended due to COVID till September for those units to be counted. So the town needed about 23 or 24 units to get over the 40B. This is 20 of them. The Harbor project is going to add 3 to 4 units to the housing stock as well. So then we'll hit that number. So that's why I keep telling people it's critical for this particular property because of the volume of housing that counts to the town. And it goes on that 2020 census. So for the next 10 years, all of the grants that you apply for, they look back at the 2020 census to apply the funds. So that's why this was very important to the Housing Steering Committee and the Housing Trust. And I know Steve Gomer is on from the Housing Trust. I don't know if Lisa was able to add him in to be able to speak. You're on mute, Lisa.
Thank you. Sorry. Oddly, for some reason, I can't upgrade him to panelist, promote him to panelist, but he is unmuted. He should be able to talk.
So
I don't know whether we have a limit on the amount of people we can have on this thing or not.
I'm pleased with what the Housing Trust is going to be able to do now, because it is obviously the town that is, as a whole, that has not really been able to do things. And a lot of it's because of procurement rules and everything else. You can't sell a piece of vacant land unless you go and put it through an auction and do this and do that. And then there's no assurance that you would have affordable units or anything like that. So
Yeah,
anyway,
and, you know, from the housing perspective, you know, if this particular property gets permitted and is able to move forward, you know, you're talking about, you know, 60 to 80 new residents or residents that could move into those 5 affordable units plus the whole building. So you're talking about, you know, 60 to 80 people, residents on that facility. So, you know, it's not a small number. You know, you're going to have probably 100 people coming in and out of there.
well, I think that's a little overstated if they're 1-bedroom units, putting 4 people per unit.
Yeah, Jeff, I don't know. I thought there were 2-bedroom units, but
There's a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units for a total of 28 units. There are also, as Dan, I think kind of noted in his June of 2020 memo, there is the ability, and Donald, you know, we've talked about it, and he's indicated he'd be willing to do it, put some veterans affordable or elderly affordable above, in the area where above the 380 building, which is the building that contains the Feng Shui restaurant and the Santander Bank. So that's also a possibility down the road, and it's something that he's willing to do, just for the kind of addition to this discussion. But to answer your question, it's a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms for a total of 28 bedrooms. Donald, if you're on, I can't remember the exact mix, but you certainly can let us know that.
Yeah, there's 8 2-bedroom units and 12 1-bedroom units. And I said I would do 5 affordable elderly units above the Santander Bank. That's where the Cohasset 250 has had their office for the last couple of years, and that's where Walcott Commons had their office for about 8 years in that area there.
I think it's all a good use for the property. So
Wayne, this is Bill Arnberger. I'm wondering if I could ask you a question, clarification.
sure.
Yeah, Wayne, on the willingness of the town to, if other people tie in within the next 10 years to split costs, I think, but some of these people tying in, or perhaps all of them, may have a 20-year payment plan, correct?
Well, that's it. What's interesting is I don't know how that would necessarily work. If it was the case, the amount would have to be the amount in order to pay Mr. Sasko, in my opinion, should be more upfront, not necessarily financed over 20 years. But I don't know, meaning I don't know legally if I'm trying to say I don't know legally
so
how we can put the betterment on.
So a betterment is issued by the town in order to pay the town back. So if someone's hooking up the sewer, if they're paying him directly, then it's a private transaction, I would think. I don't know that a betterment would apply.
No, but it would have to come through us to get the connection, because we'd have to approve the connection to it.
Right.
I think you want the betterment because that's the guarantee that the payment would be made, right? Because it's collected through taxes.
Right.
So you want it to be a betterment as opposed to a private fee or something to that effect.
Right. Now, I don't know, one thing, Jeff, is what normally a betterment has a small interest, because the town can borrow inexpensively, so 1% or 1.5% or something like that. I don't know if that gets done on this or whether it isn't done on it, because I think there's a certain the town is going to be more likely to do it with the type of interest rate that they've been accustomed to, rather than just say, we're financing a fee rather than financing the actual work with it. So I'm not sure how it's going to be set up legally.
Wayne,
And maybe our council might comment on if we can use the betterment process to be able to do what we think we can do. Rod, you want to just?
I'm off the top of my head, I don't see it as a betterment if the fee being paid is just the connection fee that the new user is going to pay to connect to what will be a town sewer. My initial thought is there's a fee that they have to pay up front, and the money will all come in then. But I have not thought that through.
Yeah, and Wayne, I see it the sort of the same way. I think that it's like, if, you know, the line is there, and if a private residence or business wants to connect, then they make the sewer connection fee, the privilege fee.
So basically, in Article 10 of our rules and regulations, it's addressed in Section 1006 for land that abuts it that wants to connect, and then in Section 1004, special sewer and use connection fee, it does state that that applies if there is no betterment. But a betterment in Section 106, defined on page 2 of that same, under the definition, says that the betterment is a tax or fees imposed on the properties for sewage work and related costs. So if a private line is being put in under Article 4, then, you know, the property owner or the applicant pays for everything, then he's assessed a betterment. And if he's assessed a betterment, then we would have to go look at Section 106 for whoever butts to that, I would think. Rod, are you familiar with all of those?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Oh, okay, yep. So
My experience, you're not going to be able to do it as a betterment. But you can certainly do it as part of the development agreement, and that includes any terms that you want to do for repayment. You just include that all in the development agreement.
Okay.
All right. So I'd like to ask just two things, make a comment on two things. One is the fee, and the other one is the connection itself. During I want to say it was the spring of 18, when Mr. Stasso came before the board 3 times to discuss connections on Sawyer Street through Peppermint Brook behind the Cook Estate, and then on 3A. I have notes, and I'm sure we have it in meeting minutes, that that Mr. Stasso said that he would pay for the connection 100%, at least once, maybe twice out of those 3 meetings. The connection is something that we don't need, the town doesn't need, and you know, it's basically for his benefit. We are happy to do it, but it's something that he needs more than the town needs. So I think that is the reasoning for him to be paying 100% of that connection. With regards to the fee is determined by our engineer, and while I am positive other engineers could come up with other numbers, either lower or higher, it is our engineer who determines what the fee is, and that, in my opinion, is not a negotiable point. You know, we have done concessions for Mr. Stasko because of the affordable housing. I think we've given him a lot. We've certainly given him times 3, 4, 5 folks 2.5 to 3 years of our time. And I think that, you know, in my opinion, we have come down a great deal from what our original position was, and our original position was no. And we are now at a point where we are open for a connection. We are open for this project to move forward, and we just have to do it. We can't keep playing ping pong with this. We have to come to a resolution as soon as we possibly can, in my opinion.
Wayne, this is Bill Arnberger. If I could just follow up, just to ask a clarification on something that you, yeah. On, as far as if on the 50% reimbursement, Mr. Stasko, if others tie in, if it was during a 20-year period, any sums that, what I would suggest for consideration of the board is any sums that were agreed to by the board, because you're getting 50% of this within that 20-year period, whatever the payment plan is, as long as when the payments are made that he gets that. I think the 20 years would help, would also give the board some flexibility if, even though it's quote, not a betterment, if it was some type of land usage that was beneficial to the town, or give the town some more flexibility to encourage that if for some reason the person couldn't pay the privilege fee up front. So that would be my first thing. And the second question, which I had, which I think, Bill, I think you just answered that, but I don't mean to be redundant. It's basically the sewer privilege fee is based on the total gallonage, which the town's engineers have calculated, and less the credit that the $250,000 credit. That's what you just said, correct?
Correct.
Okay, super. So Wayne, I don't know what you think about and the rest of the board thinks about this 20 years. I think that gives a lot more flexibility to the town, to whatever having to do with town planning on what's best. And if you want to encourage a certain type of development that might not be able to flip, obviously it's the board's call as to a privilege fee, but it gives a little more flexibility there. For some reason, you're going to let them pay some of it over a period of time.
Well, again, I think we're sort of splitting hairs on the definition of a betterment and the privilege fee. I think in this case, it would be, and this again is my non-legal opinion on this, is that it would be a connection to privilege fee. And in that case, it's paid up front. So, the 50% of that would basically be, as soon as the fee comes in, the 50% would be transferred. So there wouldn't, as far as the time, as far as the period of time for the privilege fee to be shared, I think if we're willing to come to an agreement, and this again is my own number, but I think we, in the spirit of compromise, that perhaps we split the difference and say we'd take it out 15 years. And I don't know if the board has any comments on that.
I don't mind the 20 years, because we're doing potentially, I wanted to make 20 years I could probably live with. I wanted to make a comment about how come we're sort of in a little bit of jam about the whole fact about constructing it and everything, is that the sewer department does not have the fees, does not have the money to be able to pay for this extension. And in order to do something like that, we would have to go to town meeting and get an appropriation, for which we would then be paid back by users and other stuff like that. So, this is somewhat complicated in terms of if the money was used to do the project, it would likely be considered a true betterment, because it would be paid back by the people using it, versus we're trying to use the fee money as a betterment, when, as I think as our engineer said, it just should be in the document that we prepared and should amend that to come up with these new things that we're talking about.
Yeah, I do agree, Wayne, that Mass General Law under betterment allows you to go out to 20 years and no longer than that. So if we apply the 20 years, that gives us the ability to collect any additional fees that are hooked up to it, and maybe that includes something to Sawyer. We don't know what else could be hooked up to it, but certainly those were conversations we've had about not just Cook Estate, but continuing with past Sawyer Street. So that would give us time to assess what those may be. So I'm not opposed to the 20 years as well. So I think the assessor is the one who kind of implements all of this, unless it's a separate contract with the sewer department. So I'm not sure.
Separate with we do that.
Yeah, so Rod would have to let us know what that's all about. So.
Right.
I did have, and then maybe it's from Mr. Staffco to sort of answer, or maybe it comes up later, but I was curious as to, in our projections for revenue and what costs are, and I'm sure for Donald also, it's a matter of, I was curious as to whether or not each of the residential units is going to have its own water meter, hence a sewer charge for the monthly use, or whether or not there are master meters or whatever it is that is going to happen. I would assume at Stop and Shop there'd be one meter, but I would also assume that might be there's a separate meter for Feng Shui or another restaurant user or something like that. Can there be any comments on that, Donald or whoever?
Yeah, Wayne, everybody has a separate meter, even all the residential units.
Okay.
So every tenant has their own separate meter. It's just like every tenant has their own separate electrical and every tenant has their own separate gas. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much. It helps on our budgeting as things go forward in terms of, we get a nominal fee to be connected. So it's like something that provides a little extra revenue for us.
And all the water meters are the brand new water meters that are electronically recorded.
Gentlemen, I'm wondering if I could just have a brief comment on the calculation of the fee. Because as I was in preparation for this meeting, I was reviewing my notes and there was correspondence from the town's engineer, not from Mr. Coughlin, that set forth a calculation that was based on 18,855 gallons per day, which obviously is about 3,000 gallons per day less in a design concept than what Mr. Coughlin arrived at. So I'm wondering if there's some ability for the board to consider the calculation that was initially set forth by its town engineer.
Who was the person who did it? Was it Brian Joyce?
Yeah, so there was a memo that was circulated. We have gotten lost in the various information, but there was a memo that was circulated. Okay, so I stand corrected. That was a figure that Vertex came up with. And was sent over to Mr. Joyce. My apologies there.
So let me, if you don't mind, let me just say, and this again is my position as to why we utilize our engineer. If we looked at this as a residential connection, and a resident said, "Geez, I really don't like your calculations. Here are my own." And rather than spending $3,800 for a connection or $5,800 for a connection, I'll give you $12 because that's what I feel it's worth. We have to have parameters that we regulate and enforce that are public record. I can't recite them off the top of my head, but they are what we've been using for years. Dan has been with us for 20 years, I believe, or more, and has been doing this all along. And I think that if we make a change in the way that we calculate our fees, the people across the street at about a 45-degree angle from Stop and Shop Plaza are looking at this right now, I suspect. Maybe not right now, but they will, as they want to increase their apartment size up there.
Yeah.
And can I finish?
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to standardize on our rates, and we cannot, as much as it might agitate yourselves, change it because somebody else thinks it should be a different number.
So I guess I don't see anywhere in town where the owners are being assessed a fee based on uses that they don't intend to utilize or don't presently intend to utilize. So for instance, like one of the issues I was raising all along here was factored into Mr. Coughlin's equation is the potential use of the property for other purposes in the future. And my understanding of the regulation is that if a new use or an intensification of an existing use is to be made, then it's up to the applicant to petition the commission for the approval to do that. So I'm not asking for the commission to deviate from its standard rates. I'm asking the commission to take into consideration what our intended uses are. So for instance, I could tell you that that Donald has no intention of utilizing the 390 building under construction for any restaurants. The intention is brick and mortar retail and or office type uses on that first floor. And so those are, that's an example of a situation where I believe that the fee is based on a potential use that is not intended by Mr. Stasko. Should he intend a use that is different than what we're proposing, we understand that we would have to come back. So that's where my issue was. And on the Stop and Shop building, again, that system that Stop and Shop constructed was constructed prior to the state's adoption of the Title V design regulations that are in effect now. And it was intentionally oversized. So rather than applying the gallonage design for a system that is larger than the building is necessary to accommodate that need, we're asking the board to consider the square footage of Stop and Shop and to apply that square footage to the supermarket use set forth in the Title V reg. And that's a fundamental reason why our number deviates from yours. So I'm not asking for the board's consideration to reduce its standard fee, though I think that there should be a higher credit for the affordable units, since we're talking 20 affordable units here, and potentially, if we're talking the potential for more. So that's where I've been hung up this whole time. It's been difficult for me to express that to the commission, given the various conversations. We've kind of been all over the map. But I'm asking the commission to consider that argument when assessing the fee.
Why don't you put that sort of formally to us, and then we'll look at it.
I thank you. I will definitely do that, Bill. Do we have a consensus that the application is accepted, so that we could kind of launch into, trying to really, all of us give a good faith effort to, I think we've made some headway today. But I'm wondering.
I believe the application had a different number on it, so we'd have to address that. And I can say, for the board, we've been operating in good faith since day one. So,
I don't mean to suggest you're not.
But I think that the application that we got, and Lisa, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it had a different number on it than what we were looking at. So I think it just has to be. I think what we should do in a procedural basis is you send us, Jeff, just what you mentioned as far as why you think a difference in the calculation should be looked at.
Thank you.
And then we'll come back to you with a response. We haven't yet set another meeting, but we have another meeting, I believe, it would be, let's see, would it be June 20th or 22nd? It'd probably be 2 weeks from now.
So,
So that we could, yeah, I think the fundamental thing is for us to get the number correct.
so during the initial application, I think Dan mentioned that it wasn't complete. So if, Lisa, you could get to Mr. DeLeese what's missing from the application so that it could be complete. And I'd like to see, I would like to see an Exhibit A of the intended use of the property for the purpose of calculating the fees, as Jeff had mentioned. So if we can include that as part of the application, I think that would be something that we can all assess.
I believe we're also looking for a development plan.
Development agreement.
A
Right.
development.
I mean, basically, this is outside the district, so it really isn't just a standard application because there's no right to connect here. So the whole reason, the concept, and what, Rod had worked out was a development agreement to come in with the application. So it's a complete package, and then the board can then entertain it for a vote. So in terms of just the application, my feeling is it's incomplete without a development agreement, and that's what we're discussing at this point in time. So whether it's accepted now or not, I don't think really is the item. I think the big item here is coming to terms relative to a final development agreement that everyone feels comfortable with.
Yeah, I guess I just have a fundamental disagreement on that issue. I think that we filed an application for a connection. It certainly is within the purview of the commission to act on that one way or the other. And in order to act on it positively, I definitely agree with you there that we need an agreement. And so the way I view this is that we have an application, it's filed, it's pending. Defer acting on it until we've reached an agreement and established the right to connect per that agreement. And so I guess it's 6 1/2 dozen the other. But I'm happy, just Paul, getting back to you, happy to list out the uses on an Exhibit A, whether that be an exhibit to the application or in a letter separately. Lisa, if you can get me, I had requested information in writing as to what is missing from the application. And I think, Dan, your point is well taken, is, we could be talking about that, but at the end of the day, you need an agreement. So I just want to, I just want to have a process that we're actually engaging in. And I view the application for a connection as the process, just from a legal standpoint. Otherwise, it's just an informal discussion. And I think it's important to have a process for the public forum, for the town and the commission.
Well, I think if you can get us that, the information you said you were going to provide us, I think that we can move on that quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, Bill Armberger. Bill, can I ask you a question, just procedural question, please?
Sure.
Yeah. So assuming at the next board meeting that the applicant and you folks are in agreement on all the principal terms here, is that something where you vote that subject to finalizing whatever linguistic nitty-gritty is in the agreement before it's signed by the town?
Yeah, most likely, yes. Since we've never done anything like this before, we're all sort of on untrod ground. So yeah, I would suspect that we will then take a vote. And once we get the numbers to a point where we're happy with them, yes, I would suspect we would take a vote on it.
I think it makes a huge amount of sense, that process. Thank you.
Donald, I think that as council, we've probably covered what we need to cover, but my question is, do you have any questions for the board, or do you have any comments based on what we've all spoken about?
No,
at
I
this
think,
time.
I think this has been a very productive meeting and we're going forward.
Have you had any progress, or is it us holding it up as far as your Tetra Tech? I know there's a couple of people on now. Is there anything that is changed or anything like that? Because I have one of the things that I'd like to have on it is, will you have a plot plan of your entire lot so that it shows the connections of the other, you know, the three buildings? And I'm concerned to make sure that that there's enough room for the town to extend the main from Stop and Shop up to Sawyer Street if that happens in the future. I noticed they put a sidewalk out there going across the little sidewalk, and then there's some conduits and stuff in the ground. And I didn't know, Donald, where your property starts and ends going along 3A. So I just wanted to see whether there's still room in the shoulder to be able to extend the main and not be cut off.
The state put in the sidewalk. I think that's part of the state's infrastructure for crossing. In my development plan, I had to put a sidewalk in the grass area. So since the state already did all their work, we dug it out and prepped it. So when I finished on the sidewalk on the south end of the new building, we're going to pour that sidewalk to the state property.
So how much land do you think is between your property and the state pavement? That's my question.
I think it's about 25 feet.
Oh, it is. Okay. All right. Because I didn't want to have a situation that if, and I'm not, you mentioned earlier that you would likely give the Cook Estate people an easement or whatever to connect at somewhere there. And, you know, I didn't know if it was smarter for them to go down Sawyer Street and do something that way, or looking to the future, but there are pros and cons for everything. So anyway, we should at least be able to get back to your engineers in a relatively short piece of time to sort of review what it is that they submitted so that they can, you know, so that everybody can work on it. But in the meantime, also have your design set up for how you're going to connect to it.
Can I just go back to one item? And that was, you had mentioned, Don, possibility for 5 additional units being added to the process. Was it over 380, I believe? Are those going to be affordable? And how much of a commitment, or are you in a position to make a commitment to do those units at this point in time? Because that may play into this as well.
Yeah, there would be 4 to 5 elderly units because all the elevator, everything's in there. And, you know, and it would be, the elderly would be, it'd be elderly or VA housing, and they're all committed to be affordable.
Okay. And that's on top of the other affordables that you've already committed to.
Right. So all the units over the bank would be affordable, you know, for elderly or veterans. I'm a veteran myself, and a lot of veterans are do not have housing in the community.
Are those going to be 1 bedrooms, do you think?
They'll all be 1-bedroom units.
I mean, in terms of what Attorney DeLisi is going to be submitting, I don't know if you're in a position to make a commitment to that, but we could certainly, you know, that might help some of the overall evaluation.
We'll take a look at that, Dan. I just haven't had an opportunity to discuss with Donald. This concept of housing is something that we've always discussed amongst ourselves, but haven't really done any particular analysis. So I'll talk to Donald about it and potentially address it in some kind of correspondence to the board.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I appreciate your conversation today. And we look forward to notification of the next date, and I'll send something in shortly.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we now are off to Diab Lane, right?
Yes.
Rod, do you have
Bill.
I know you've been doing stuff. Do you have an update on that?
Yes, I do. Stephen Ryder, the attorney for Matt Shannon, sent a letter yesterday, and I believe it's been distributed to the commission, confirming that the back taxes owed on each of the 3 lots on Diab Lane, numbers 3, 9, and 15, I believe. Those taxes were paid in full. And I checked with the tax collector's office, and there's no outstanding amounts due on any of those lots. And so, the basis for which the commission might withdraw the permits has been cured. Since the permits were issued before this issue came up, I suggest that based on this, the commission formally confirm the issuance of the permits going forward. That would allow, as you know, there is one buyer for one of the lots, and that closing has been postponed. So again, I would suggest that if the commission would take a formal vote to confirm that the issuance of those permits, that would smooth things along for that buyer.
So my only question to that is, has he applied for all 3 or just the one? I know the one was that he had a buyer for, I believe.
He put an application in for each lot.
He did. And that's what, 3? Can you give me the numbers? 3?
Number 3, number 9, and number 15, Diab Lane.
But we didn't cancel it. It was the town manager that canceled it. And so I thought last meeting that we said that we did not have an issue, but that the town manager had to release what it is that he did. So, Mr. Ryder, Attorney Ryder, maybe you could.
Hoffman.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
oh, Mr. Hoffman, did you want to say something?
No, my point here is that I agree that the permits had not been formally revoked by the commission. It's the commission's responsibility. I think the town manager's statements, or his position, has just led to a lack of clarity. And so I think to make a closing go smoothly, to have it formally voted by the commission, and this is what the town manager suggested in a conversation I had with him, if the commission would vote to confirm those permits, that would make it clear for all.
Yeah,
So the permits are active and unencumbered, is what you're saying?
At this point in time.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
let's just do it specifically for 3 Diab Lane, although it should be for.
So we voted for all 3 of them, so we should do it for all 3 of them.
Right. But
Yes,
do we?
and the taxes have been paid on all 3.
Yeah.
correct.
So I'd like to make a motion that the permit that was issued for the 3 properties on Diab Lane are in full
Continue.
force and unencumbered. Is there a second?
Second, but you want to do it
Are there any
at the
comments?
right language we need, or?
Yeah, I think all we have to do, rather than bringing the tax implication into it, is basically say that the board votes to, reestablish the permit, the sewer connection privilege permit on Diab 3, 9, and 15, and that's it. I think that's all we have to do.
I agree.
So,
Is that-
So I'll make a motion that the board reinstate the permits for number 3, number 9, and number 15 Diab Lane, effective immediately. I got a second. All in
Paul
favor?
Pierce,
I'll do a roll call. Bill McGowan, aye.
Paul
Wait,
Pierce, aye.
Chuck, aye. And why don't you make the date today so that,
Yep, so effective on June 8th.
But to be clear, they are reestablished on the terms and conditions that were initially attached.
right,
Which they have to be connected by September 16th, I believe.
Yep.
Right.
And paid for in full.
right. So like, add that to it.
So I know his attorney's here, Mr. Ryder. I don't know if you have any additional comments.
No, I don't. I think this process is to give this buyer a little more comfort because we did get confused, and I think your vote probably takes care of that. So thank you very much.
All righty, thank you.
Right, DEP, the letter that came in yesterday, Dan, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but is that to our favor?
Yeah, I haven't looked at it at all.
Real quick, I mean, all that is it's a little bit different. That's water quality cert that the state has to do. They say no comments went in for the water quality cert. I don't think we ever got notice of the water quality cert. I'm not sure. But it's separate from the EPA permit. It's just one of the state steps.
Okay, all right. So
They did have some modifications though in the PFAS testing. So I haven't really taken a hard look at that yet, but it's certainly a step in the right direction.
They reduced it by about 30%. So it's closer to what we requested.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is actually going from the state to the federal government saying that this is what.
Yeah, and it sounds like the state had some negotiations with EPA as part of that as well, to get the PFAS changed slightly. So, it's just one step that they have agreed to so far. EPA can still make additional changes or revisions. So
Okay.
we just have to wait for the review of the comment period.
Okay.
Hey, so in a completely random question, I'm getting texts from folks around the harbor, I guess, that there's blasting going on. Does anyone know what's going on with that? Anyone heard that there's going to be that kind of stuff?
No.
Yeah, I guess somebody just sent me a thing saying he's hearing horn blasts and dynamite explosions.
I know that people were complaining at Nantasket Beach. Everyone's feet were black as they walked on the beach from whatever was there. So, there's a mystery over there, but I don't know, maybe it's a result of blasting. Who knows?
You can refer to the fire chief. He's the one who's supposed to issue permits for that.
Yeah, I'll give him a ring. So, all right. Do we have any other business to deal with?
Just when is the next meeting?
The 22nd. Does that work?
So I'm not going to be here. I'm going on another vacation.
Wow, 2 and 30 days, huh?
Yeah.
I have one question. I did a little driving through town the other day, and I came across some houses that are now just popping up, and I didn't know whether there was activity because we haven't seen some new applications unless, Lisa, you've done some. There's one on Hull Street that's set back. Looks like it was a garage that's being turned into a house, all new construction though. And there's another one somewhere off of right now on Jerusalem Road, across the street from W.V. Mason's house there, that there's a new structure that's gone up behind the garage there, right on the water side.
Do you have a physical address, like the number?
It's going to be around
365 or so.
no, let's see, 64. I think it's going to be up to the 390s
75.
or higher.
Yep.
Do you know of one? Okay. It's just these things are popping up and I'm saying, I don't remember, having any permits coming through for the,
Yeah, and that's a good point, Wayne, because I had to stop because of trucks out in front of the old Kennedy House by Cunningham Bridge.
right.
And they're building a garage that's, pretty good size, but I'm wondering if they have anything in there. And I don't think we've got any plans on that at all. I know they have connections to the house.
Right, but the connection to the house is technically for a 4-bedroom house. So if they've got 6 bedrooms in the new house and they got 2 bedrooms on the other house and a bedroom in the pool house that they kept, it might mean that they need to contribute a little bit more towards that.
Exactly. So that, yeah, my point. So,
Yeah, I'll look into it when I get back to the office.
okay.
The only lot with a lot of ledge would be the Schutz's property. And I seem to look for something that's going up there, and that would be fairly close to Sandy Beach. That potentially you can't see the lot because of the trees, but it's
Are you talking the one right at the water, on the water there?
the Schutz's is where the carriage house is right at the
Yeah.
driveway entrance, 215, and then you drive up there and there's the huge original summer house, and then they sold a lot off for a couple of $1 million last year, and I think the house is going to start being under construction. So now that, by the way, Lisa, that's something that you have to check on too, because that's part of the sewer connection going to the portion of the sewer pipe that goes under the bridge but isn't connected on the 2 sides. So as the house gets completed, they're not going to be able to use sewer unless that section of the pipe is connected, which apparently the owner of the estate knows that it has to be done and that they're going to contribute to some of the costs. And Michelle knows all about that.
That's the one near the Cunningham Bridge, you said?
Yes,
The Wilson Road?
yeah, right as you go over the bridge. It's where they put the new bridge in. Okay, and what is it, a 4-inch pipe that goes under the bridge, Dan? That the contractor put in?
Yeah, I'm not sure, either 4 or 3.
Okay,
Right.
so it's got to be connected on that end. And at some point connected on the other end, because they want to pave the road. This has only been going on for a couple of years. Just maybe put it for the future agenda.
I
So
thought
do-
they already did it though. So I thought when they did the bridge, they did connect the pipes on both ends.
No, because where they had to connect it to was at the base of 215.
Right.
It's
So we're
maybe
gonna have to-
100 feet up the street.
So we're gonna have to dig up the street then, right?
Yeah, but it's under the street that hasn't been resurfaced. It's not under the new pavement of the bridge. They took it, they went over the bridge and went a certain distance.
Right.
After that, they didn't redo the street. They didn't. And in the meantime, the gas was extended and a couple of other things. So there's some fresh trenches. So appropriate time to do it. So that Brian Joyce is on. So he would like to see that dug up after the new pavement goes in.
Pipe should be flushed and tested too, prior to extending it, just to make sure everything's still good.
All I have.
All right.
The only thing I have is, Lisa, if you're not going to be here on June 22nd, is there somebody else, or maybe Brian can answer the question, that could set up the Zoom meeting and take the meetings to the minutes?
Or we could do it another time. When are you coming back, Lisa? Or when are you,
I'll be back the following week, so it's just the 19th through the 26th I'll be out.
You could have Michelle set it up, I would think.
So you could do you could do the 29th of June then, is what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, or
Yeah.
we could even do it beforehand. Let me just see what I'm doing here.
15th.
Yeah, or maybe 15th I can't, but what about maybe the 17th or the 18th?
What day of the week is it?
Thursday, Friday?
Thursday's fine.
Why don't we say the 17th? All right.
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, and
Yep.
let the attorneys know too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to let the leasing know he's got to get his
Yeah.
stuff in for that.
Well,
I will
Donald,
do that.
thank you.
Thanks, Rod.
All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, see you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, have a good day.
You too. See you later.